Ambassador Sam Brownback, thank you for joining us on Jerusalem Dateline.
Happy to join you.
Now, you're here with us today to tell us about the situation of Armenian Christians in Nagorno-Karabakh. Could you start by giving us a little bit of history, who these people are, where they live, and what's happening to them?
These are Armenian Christians. Armenia is the oldest Christian nation on earth. It was the first nation to accept Jesus as Lord and Savior as a nation in the 3rd century. And so these are ancient historic Christians that are surrounded by a Muslim nation in Azerbaijan that's really trying to strangle and force them out. And so it's this kind of age-old story that we've seen played throughout the Middle East, where you get these ancient Christian populations, and then they get strangled and pushed around and until people leave, and there's no Christians left. And that's really what's setting up and happening in Nagorno-Karabakh.
So how many people are we talking about? How large is that community?
It's about 120,000 that's in this region, Nagorno-Karabakh. Armenia is larger. It's about 3 million people, but this is an Armenian Christian population that's surrounded by Azerbaijan. And it's also a place of a former genocide that took place 100 years ago. In 1915, there was the Armenian genocide by the Turkish, the Ottoman Empire, when it was falling. There was over 1 million Armenian Christians that were killed in that genocide. And we just don't want to see that repeated again.
Ambassador Brownback, why should Christians care about other Christians in Armenia?
Because they're our brothers and sisters. And this is, we are in an era now where you've got the most Christian persecution of any time in world history. And if people, particularly Christians in the United States, but all over the world, but certainly ones in the United States, don't pick up this cause and stand for it, they're going to be crushed. They're going to be forced out of their ancient homelands. They'll end up immigrating to Europe or the United States or Canada in all probability, and we'll end up with more refugees here, which is fine, I guess. I mean, we're a nation that takes refugees in, but that's not what should be forced to happen. They should be able to live in their homeland. They should be able to practice their faith freely, and we need to stand up and fight for them, and we've got tools that we can use to make sure that they are allowed to stay and practice their faith freely.
Can you explain exactly what is happening to them there? I understand there's a road that's blocked and they can't get supplies.
It's a kind of a long story, but what basically has happened is you've got an enclave of 120,000 Armenian Christians that are surrounded by Azerbaijan, which is a Muslim population that's there. There is a corridor called the Lachin Corridor that's 21 miles long that they have gotten their food and supplies in historically, and that's supposed to be guarded by the Russians. The Russians are not anywhere to be found now for obvious reasons, and so the Azeris have cut off that road and supply line to the Christians going into this enclave. And that's what's taking place now, is they're really being strangled because they can't get food and supplies and fuel into these 120,000 Christians.
What is the U.S. position on this? Why is it important to the U.S. to care about this?
Well, we've got a lot of sway in this region between both Armenia and Azerbaijan. We've worked closely with Azerbaijan. The Israelis have, and they've got sway in this region, and we can push the Azeris to allow the food and the fuel and the supplies to go in through this Lachin Corridor. And we supply armament to the Azeris. And we can say to them, if you're going to strangle this group of Christians, we're not going to supply you any more weaponry. And I think we also ought to target Turkey on this. Turkey is behind Azerbaijan in this. And I think we ought to threaten sanctions on Turkey on steel and aluminum, in particular, sensitive items, if they don't stop the support for the strangulation of this ancient Christian population.
Now, Israel is in a little bit of a precarious situation. They kind of have tight security relations with Azerbaijan, and yet they do care about humanitarian needs like this for the Christians in Armenia. What could Israel do? They're kind of like caught between a rock and a hard place.
Well, I think Israel has a real key role to play here, and you can do both. they can have a security relationship with Azerbaijan, but also say, we will not support your effort at this humanitarian disaster of strangling these Christians. And the Israelis really should be pushing on Azerbaijan to open up this Lachin Corridor so that the food, the fuel, the medical supplies can get in to these 120,000 Christians.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add?
The time is of the essence. This winter's coming in. It's going to get worse. The Armenian Christians have been able to supply themselves with gardens and things that they have in their area, but that's not going to last through the whole winter, and medical issues become more dire as well. We really need to push on this happening now, both in the United States and in Israel.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ambassador Brownback, for joining us on Jerusalem Dateline.
Thank you.